In the 1990s, Rabbi Tovia Singer spoke at Binghamton University. Tovia Singer is an anti-missionary. His full-time job is devoted to stopping Jews from believing Jesus is the Messiah, or if they've already come to believe Jesus is the Messiah, to try to persuade them to reject him. And he was speaking at the local university, and during question and answer, one of the students asked Rabbi Tovia Singer to define who is a Jew. Rabbi Tovia Singer began by explaining there's great diversity within Judaism, like there is in practically every group, religious, non-religious, etc. And he said, but for most Jews, they're secular, non-religious, and he would call it a bagel and lox Judaism. Judaism is not faith, religion, things of that nature for most Jewish people. It's bagel and lox. It's the food, it's movies, it's culture, things of that nature. If you're Jewish, you eat bagel and lox. Or if you're like me and you're not a fish eater, then it's bagel and cream cheese. If you're Jewish, you watch movies like Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments, and you watch Fiddler on the Roof. Judaism for many Jews is the culture that they're part of, as opposed to a religion or a faith. Me and my family, I lived in Rockaway Beach in New York City while I was growing up, and we were not religious, but right on the block where we lived was Temple of Israel. Temple of Israel was Orthodox when I was young. At some point during my life, I believe my teenage years, it changed and became conservative, middle of the road with a leaning towards Orthodox Judaism. We ourselves only went to synagogue twice a year like most Jewish people, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, two high holidays in the fall. But celebrating a bar mitzvah was not an option. That was something all Jewish people did, whether you're religious or not. And here's a picture taken of me on my bar mitzvah day. Now on the left side of the screen you see the temple in which I attended growing up, Temple of Israel, but you also see a sign Haven Ministries on the door. Sometime after I graduated from college, the neighborhood changed dramatically. Many of the Jews moved out of the community, and the temple dissolved and the building was sold to this ministry. But this was the synagogue in which I attended while growing up. This synagogue was on the block in which I lived on, the apartment building, and also right next door to Temple of Israel was St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church. And as far as I knew, everybody who lived in our buildings either attended Temple of Israel or St. Rose of Lima. I didn't think anyone from either congregation was very religious, but that was the place in which their family attended for worship services and or holiday celebrations. Well, my junior year in high school, a friend of mine, John, said party at my house Christmas Eve. Well, it wasn't anything to do with Christmas. It was just an opportunity to have a party. And well, I got there, and John's parents were in the living room with all their adult friends. They had food and liquor everywhere for them. They told all of us teens to go into John's bedroom. They gave us pizza, chips, and 2 cases of beer and told us to enjoy ourselves. Yes, they did. And so we were good, obedient children, and we enjoyed ourselves. We enjoyed the pizza, beer, and the chips. All of it, yes, we did. Well, at 11:30, John's mother came in the room and said, party's over, Christmas Eve. Let's go, off to midnight mass. My friend started putting down the beer, marching out the door to go to church. So happened that another Jewish person was standing next to me, and we looked at each other. What do we do? What do we do? They're all going to church. Finally, my friends looked at me and says, well, it's only 11:30 at night. It's too early to go home. Yes, I vaguely remember those days. It's still early at 11:30 p.m. We decided then our friends were no more religious than us. They were just attending one of their big holidays, worship services, just like we did in September. So we figured we might as well hang out with our friends. So we put our beers down. We followed the crowd off to church. Well, I had followed my friends into some mischief on occasion before that, but this night I have followed them to midnight mass, sat through the service. I was familiar with Christmas songs, not because I was pursuing Christianity, but in the month of December, that's all the radio stations played. It didn't matter what style of music. The only thing they played was Christmas songs. So I was familiar with the music. The rest of the service, totally unfamiliar with. But throughout this service, I felt a joy that I never had experienced before. And I got thinking, what is the cause of this joy? And then I realized it had to be one of two things. That's right. Was it the beer or Jesus? Which one was making me feel this way? Well, I'd been drunk on plenty of times, occasions before this, so I was pretty sure this was different and it was not the beer, but I needed to know for sure. And so I decided I needed to go back to church one more time, but be sober on this occasion so I could find out for sure whether it's the beer or Jesus that was creating this joy. Well, I had to wait to Christmas Eve again as I thought about it because I couldn't just walk into church Sunday morning. Everybody, as far as I knew, who attended church lived in our apartment buildings. So what did that mean? They all knew my parents. Well, I didn't want my parents to find out I was going to church, so I had to wait to Christmas when I had an opportunity to make up an excuse, an excuse for why I went to church. Well, Christmas Eve came, my 12th year in high school. I avoided my friends like the plague so that I could stay sober. And then I went to midnight mass. And once again, yes, it happened. I felt this joy just as I had expected. It was Jesus, not the beer, that made me feel this way. I then decided it was something so wonderful that I couldn't just leave it at that and never encounter this again. I needed to find out a way in which I could go to church again so I could continue to have this experience.